This week, we're looking at another one of those games that I remember playing with my brothers frequently as kids, Smash TV. With the exception of the Midway Arcade Collection, I never played the arcade version. In fact, I don't recall ever seeing it in any store or arcade that I've ever been in. When I got the NES game, I didn't even know that it was an arcade port. All I knew is that it was violent, chaotic fun. In Smash TV, the goal is simple. You, or you and a friend, are participants in a twisted game show that feels like it would be right at home in Stephen King's Running Man novel. If you can make it through a few dozen rooms, you'll win fantastic prizes and lots of cash. The catch is that there are thousands of lethal threats that are coming for you, and they don't want you to win those lawnmowers. In order to protect yourself against the hordes of enemies that you'll encounter, you are given a machine gun with infinite ammo. Thankfully, in Smash TV, you can simply hold down the shoot button to unleash an unlimited stream of bullets. You do not need to constantly smash the button. What you might be thinking, especially if you've played the arcade game, is how the twin stick style converted. Well, I'll tell you. Once you press start on the title screen, you are given two options to control your characters, in addition to the 1 or 2 player game. You have one controller and 2 controller modes. The way this works is that in one controller mode, you press A to shoot in whichever direction you are moving in, and then press B to lock your aim in the last direction you shot in. For example, let's say you moved north and shot up there. If you pull a 180 and start moving south, you can now press B and your character will aim his rifle north, no matter which direction you're moving in. This is the method I'm the most used to, as it's the one I primarily used growing up. It may seem awkward at first, but I promise that it doesn't take a lot of effort to get down. The second way to control your contestant is 2 controller mode. With this, you take 2 controllers and rotate each so that the D-pads are pointing up. Holding one controller in each hand, the left controller moves your character while the right controller's D-pad shoots in whichever direction you press. I tried this, and it works well enough, although I did notice I tended to unintentionally shoot in diagonals a lot. This might be because I was using 2 SNES gamepads hooked up to my Retron 5. Either option works well enough though, so use whichever you feel the most comfortable with. So once you choose how to control your little guy, you enter the first room. The idea of the game is simple. You enter a room, kill everything that enters before they kill you, and move on to the next room. Repeat. It's like Doom 2016, but about 25 years earlier. Different rooms have different thugs out for your life, and at some points you'll have an option on which room you want to move to next. Ultimately, you are aiming for the room on the far right, where the boss of the stage is. There are 3 stages, each with 1 boss, although the last stage does have a few extra surprises at the end. It's very simple, and the arcade field translates perfectly. The little machine gun that you run around with will do its job faithfully, but you're probably going to want some heavier weapons to take down some more troublesome enemies, like tanks, orbs, and what I always called trains. The game shall oblige. Grenades have minimal range, but are rapid firing, tearing apart anything that they touch. Rockets are slow firing, but can kill non-boss enemies with 1 hit. The spread gun is able to take down a bunch of enemies at once, especially if they start getting a bit too close for comfort. These weapons all have limited ammo, denoted by the meter underneath your score, but weapons are presented to you so frequently that it probably won't be too much of a problem. There are other items that you can encounter too. Foot icons will speed up your character, which can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. Sure, it's nice to be able to evade your pursuers, but you might evade yourself right into an enemy's club. Shields make you invulnerable for a few seconds, and you can use this time to run into any threat to destroy them immediately. Great for tanks. You spawn with a shield every time you die, so use this time wisely, as it might be one of the most beneficial power-ups in the game. Ninja stars will circle your character, slaying weaker enemies. However, if the stars hit something stronger, like a tank or a bomb, it will ricochet off, and you'll lose them. Otherwise, the stars will disappear after they take out a certain amount of enemies. Finally, every room will spawn exactly 1 extra life per game. If you are playing with a friend, communication on who should go after the extra life is highly recommended. If you play your cards smartly, you should both be able to get 9 lives before the poopy hits the fan. And it will, because later rooms swarm you with enemies. Even the low-tier bandits will be a threat, running up to you and attempting to club you over the head. The game attacks with numbers, although only a few enemies have any sort of ranged attack. Once you start memorizing where rooms are that are giving you trouble, you can also attempt to avoid them. So let's say you are losing a ton of lives in a room that has those laser shooting orb enemies. Well, take a different path and you might run into tanks, but it's up to you to determine what the lesser threat is. It's kinda nice to have this opportunity to choose your own path, even if all roads do lead to the bosses. Speaking of bosses, there are interesting fights that are less frantic but just as fun as the standard rooms. Each boss has a recognizable pattern that you'll be able to pick up within a minute or two. Mutoid Man shoots lasers downward, so maximizing your time in the upper parts of the level is a good strategy. Scarface follows you around shooting something from his eyes as you attempt to destroy his outer skin, revealing a harsh skull underneath. The Cobra Twins are snakes that remind me of Link to the Past's snake bosses in the second dungeon in the Dark World. However, I think these guys are harder due to the frequency of the attacks and also the fact that you die immediately upon taking a single hit. I wasn't able to get past this boss for this review, due to the fact that I'm a bit rusty, but I have been able to beat the game in the past, and know that the final boss is the MC that runs the show. Sadly, he's pretty much the same thing as Mutoid Man, so if you were expecting something different, well, you're not going to get it. Once you beat a boss, you are taken to a score screen where your progress is tallied up, along with a partner, if applicable. You are shown who has gotten the most prizes and cash. Of course, it's all for bragging rights, due to the high scores being erased after the game shuts off. Actually, come to think of it, there is no high score table either. Anyway, whoever gets the most prizes gets a nice smile on their face to rub it in. In order to be the victor, you'll just want to pick up the various gold, cash, and presents that are scattered around the arenas. Speaking of the prizes, let's talk about how outlandish some of these are. Lawnmowers? VCRs? Big screen TVs? Sweet, but how many of these do I actually need? Even if I gave a bunch of them to friends, I'm still going to have a ton left over. The best of them, which makes me laugh, might be the year's supply of good meat. Why only good meat? Why can't I get premium meat? I mean, the organizers of the show probably don't expect me to survive, so why not tempt me with the best farmers can supply? In order to entice you to retrieve these gifts, the MC will occasionally pop up on the screen with scantily clad women and talk to you. Seriously, there is some digitized speech in this NES game, and it's incredibly clear. It even includes the famous line taken from RoboCop. I'd buy that for $1. It helps lend to the game show atmosphere perfectly, and it's even more reason for me to love this game. Even better, with all of the chaos that you'll be running into, you'll be surprised at how fluid the game runs. There is minimal sprite flicker, and I have never seen a lick of slowdown at all. That is truly impressive for the amount of objects that are present on the screen. Also, is that blood when you kill enemies? I'm pretty sure that's blood splattering after deaths on an NES game. Sweet. With that said, though, the rest of the graphics, along with the sounds, are fairly minimal. There's only really one music track that plays for the first minute or so upon entering a room, but after that, it's just you, gunfire, and the occasional explosion. Most of the rooms in the level are identical, so it's not like there's a ton of locations to look at, but the gameplay is still a blast, and helps to alleviate the samey look. Smash TV is just a fantastic arcade conversion. I had fun with it as a kid, and I still have fun with it to this day. I will admit that if there's one thing I wish the game had, it was continues, as once you lose all of your lives it's back to the start, but the fact that extra lives are in literally every room helps me to overlook this minor issue. I haven't spent any time with Super Smash TV, which is supposed to be a more faithful transition from the arcade, but I'm satisfied with playing the game on the 8-bit system. This is a game I highly recommend, especially if you have someone to play with. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.